Welcome to Your Infinite Health. Are you getting older?
Are you feeling it?
How would you like to do that in reverse?
We're your host,
Dr. Tripp
and Lenae.
We've run an integrative medicine practice for 13 years.
Together, we have 60 years of combined experience helping clients.
We've helped tens of thousands achieve success in health and live longer, happier lives.
In this show, we'll cover peer-reviewed and evidence-based integrative approaches to creating the health you've always wanted.
We also share professional experience we see in the field every day.
So if you're ready to feel, look, and live your best life, you're in the right place.
Welcome to Your Infinite Health podcast.
What's up, Tripp?
Oh, hey.
You've been gone a minute.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about that. But before I get into that, I wanted to see if you knew what a tick and the Eiffel Tower have in common.
A tick?
A tick and the Eiffel Tower. What do they have in common?
And the Eiffel Tower. Ooh, I don't know.
They're both parasites. But I love Paris. Please don't take that personally. It's just a joke. Okay, so you've been gone and you had a little adventure.
Oh dear.
So you went to Houston, Texas, and stayed at the Marriott Marquis in Houston, Texas.
Yes, I did.
Because you were going to a CME conference put on by the AMMG, which stands for
Age Management Medicine Group.
Age Management Medicine Group. It's a mouthful.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you drove there in your truck, also known as a dually, and you get to the Marriott Marquis in Houston, and you pull up, and the valet refused to park the truck in Texas, where everybody drives a freaking truck, refused to park it.
Correct.
Redirected you off hotel property.
Yes.
Onto some sketch parking lot where you had to pay $200 to park. So in theory, it was supposed to be a secured parking lot where the Marriott Marquis in Houston directs dualies to go park, right?
Well, they just suggested parking and told me to turn a couple times and said they're parking lot over there.
So they directed you to that lot, the valet of the Marriott Marquis in Houston, Texas. And before the next morning, what did you discover?
Well, I discovered a text from my vehicle
from the OnStar service.
From the OnStar service, correct. That 4 out of my 6 tires had gone flat. And then about 10 minutes later, closer to 4 o'clock in the morning, they noted that somebody was attempting to break into the vehicle. I noted these texts at about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I decided to go see what was going on. So I went over to the parking lot.
Oh, I didn't know you went out there in the dark by yourself.
No, I was at the conference then.
Oh, 10 a.m. the next morning.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Yeah. No. No, there was no sound or anything from that notification, so it didn't wake me up.
Oh, okay.
At any rate, so I walk over to the parking lot. Lo and behold, the place that I'd parked the truck was empty.
So the truck got stolen.
Well, I called the appropriate tow places and all that they said to see if your vehicle was towed.
You're being awfully nice. The truck was stolen, listener. It was stolen. And neither OnStar can find it. In case you have OnStar, you might want to cancel that subscription. Personally, I think it's a waste of money because they can't find the truck. And the Marriott offered a free dinner in exchange for his 1-year-old dually. So I just wanted to take a moment and share the experience. But not only that, that was just the beginning of the weekend, right? Because then obviously you had to file a police report,
Right.
had to file an insurance claim, and then you had to figure out how to get back to your office in Lake Charles. So now we got a transportation issue, and I love you, mean it, but I wasn't driving from New Orleans to Houston to pick you up. So tried to make arrangements to get a rental car, and tell everybody about that.
So I arrived at the.
My dad, this story is better than any dad joke I could ever tell.
Oh my God. This is a dad joke. So I arrived at the Enterprise to pick up the vehicle that had been apparently reserved for me, and they had no vehicles.
You took an Uber to get there?
No, I walked there.
Oh, you walked there. Okay, you walked there because you were told that they had a vehicle reserved for you, and lo and behold, there was no reserved vehicle at the Enterprise in Houston, Texas. Okay.
And subsequently went back to the well, no, I got an Uber from there because I was able to arrange. There was another rental place, a Hertz rental place that apparently had cars available, and by the time I got there, they were closed.
Like they had closed an hour before you got there.
So I called. No, it was 10 minutes before.
10 minutes before you got there. This is called a bad day.
This is a bad day. So then I called another Uber, and fortunately, at the end of the ride, I had the thought. I asked the young man that was driving if he might be willing to drive me to Lake Charles the next day, the following day after the conference was over. And fortunately, he accepted, and I made it back to Lake Charles.
And thank God for angels in disguise. And not only that, but he took you grocery shopping.
Yes, he did. He did.
That's so. Thank you to that Uber driver for making sure my husband got home. And craziness. I'm so glad I wasn't with you. Anyway, listener, we're so glad that he's back safe, and we hope, like, the insurance claim adjuster doesn't think that truck will ever be found. It's probably in Mexico, giving a ride to the cartel by now.
Yeah, that's what I heard. The cartels really like those dually trucks.
So if you're in a Mexican cartel, you're welcome. It's a great truck. Okay. Anyway, enough of that. So we have a guest. And I thought you would be really excited because he is of like-mindedness. It is Dr. Vasily Eliopoulos. I hope Dr. Eliopoulos, I'm saying that correct. For shortness, he said I could call him Dr. Vaz. He is the co-founder of Rocky Mountain Regenerative Medicine, aka RMRM, a medical clinic in Boulder, Colorado that specializes in regenerative medicine, which is a powerful new branch of medicine, not really new, that uses a patient's biology, stem cells. Not supposed to say stem cells, so I'm not going to say stem cells.
Say stem cells.
You can? I don't think you can. To naturally heal the body from disease, injury, or simply aging. With a team of more than 6, RMRM has helped hundreds of people, including top athletes, perform better, feel younger, and live longer, healthier lives than they ever believed possible by leveraging the most sophisticated diagnostics and regenerative therapies. Dr. Eliopoulis earned his medical degree from the prestigious Cornell University Medical College and has practiced medicine for over 20 years. He has contributed to many medical studies, including the largest study to date on the use of stem cell therapy to treat spinal disorders. Dr. Eliopoulis is also a highly sought-after speaker who has given talks on how to better treat different illnesses, improve human health, and extend life at national and international medical startup conferences. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Eliopoulis. Dr. Vaz. You said Dr. Vaz?
Yeah, Dr. Voss. Yep.
Dr. Voss, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time and that you're willing to come on and share your experience and expertise.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know Tripp is in particular really excited because he always, we're kind of isolated with, in our area with knowledge about regenerative medicine approaches. It's still very novel here, so he's always excited to meet somebody who's like-minded. So I'm probably going to be sitting back in a little bit here, but wanted to see how you got into regenerative medicine. You went to med school in Cornell, and like at that point, did you know that you were going to go into regenerative medicine, and what did you do before and all that good stuff?
Yeah. It was definitely not the plan when I went to med school. I didn't even know what regenerative or functional med, depending on the terms that are used, what that type of medicine was. I'm traditionally trained, Cornell for med school, and then trained in general surgery and emergency medicine at the University of Colorado and Denver Health. And I'm out here in Boulder, Colorado still. And I practiced in the Denver metro area in emergency medicine, board certified in emergency medicine, practiced in emergency medicine for many years. And to answer your question, I had personal health issues that I was, getting the best care for in the system. And I was not happy with the results that I was getting. And so there was a personal interest in looking for alternative modalities to deal with my own issues. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, there was the driver, which is the frustration that I think every person, whether it's a patient or a provider who's in the traditional system, feels that the system is amazing if you really need to be there. If you hit by a truck, have a heart attack, you're septic, you had a stroke, like that's what we do really well in traditional medicine in this country. But if you don't fit into one of those boxes, we really fail, I feel, as a health system for people. And so I was frustrated with what I guess to put it in a nutshell, I felt like I was at a cubicle at some big company trying to churn through patients on a hamster wheel as fast as I could. And it's not what I signed up to do. That's not why I signed up to do medicine. And so I was looking for a better health outcomes for my own personal issues and a better way to interact with my patients in medicine. And that's what led me to regenerative medicine.
Okay. That's kind of, Tripp also kind of went on a health journey. He was more interested in trying to figure out how to live longer.
Yeah. My initial stimulus was with our firstborn was a gift on my 50th birthday. And so conceptually at least. And so I think ever since I started looking into and seeing all this information, I'm a traditionally trained oncologist, internist and oncologist, board certified. And so when that happened, that interest started stimulating. I started seeing all this stuff. I was going, I can stay younger. I can effectuate change. I can do this stuff. So eventually things changed in the medical system from this. And as you know, oncology is very reactive. It's just you're hoping to provide a little bit of extra survival and quality of life. And then so as national and local politics changed and oncology, we transitioned out at her behest because she said to me, if you pay for somebody else's chemotherapy, I'm going to divorce you.
Yeah. I mean, we're still paying off that debt. So,
wow.
So were you employed by the hospital, or you had a contract with the hospital back then?
So, yeah, I mean, the practice that I'd worked in a couple different capacities. One as an employed physician for a hospital, but most of my career I was in a private practice. So we had a very successful emergency medicine practice that's still in existence here in, Northwest Metro Denver. We had a small practice that was a 2-hospital practice, and we grew it to a 7-hospital practice with multiple freestanding EDs. There's, over 50 providers. So we had, I came from, really one of the best emergency medicine practices in the country, in my opinion. We had great physicians. We had good contracts. We were growing. And even in that scenario, the environment is just toxic. And so, my partner here in this practice, who can't be with us because he's seeing clients, but we were tired. We were fed up, and we were looking for something better. And so we, found this area of medicine and created an environment in our clinic here in Boulder that I think is reflective of what we really wanted to be doing when we went into medicine. And
so what is your primary focus? Is it musculoskeletal or?
So it started that way. We started really as a stem cell clinic, but what we found, and we do a lot of, shoulders, knees, hips, spine. We do a lot of sort of the traditional stem cell, PRP, cell therapy, musculoskeletal treatments. But what we found pretty quickly was that people who are health optimized have great outcomes, and people who are not health optimized don't have as good an outcome. And it's not that you can't get an outcome for them, but the health optimization component is really key to achieving, the maximal benefit you could get for a biologic injectable. And so, and that's in our wheelhouse, that medical sort of training and care. And so what we started doing was you start health, people would come to us like, my back's killing me. I've got this, an extruded disc, and, I either don't want surgery, or they've told me surgery isn't a good option. And you start health optimizing, and, they come in wanting the shot to feel better. Mm-hmm. But most of these clients they listen to you when you say, hey, listen, your stem cells are really your healing essence. And the more optimized you are, the more optimized your healing capacity is. And so most of them are willing to make an investment of, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, some even a year, to get off the toxic medications, to turn around the metabolic distress, to optimize their health, which I think, sounds like fits into your wheelhouse too. It's what is now considered longevity medicine or anti-aging medicine. Mm-hmm. I really just think of it as medicine. You're actually helping people get rid of chronic preventable disease. And what, lo and behold, we found is a lot of people who came in thinking they needed stem cells, you turn their physiology around. A lot of them don't end up needing an injection therapy because they can heal themselves. And those people who still do need an injection therapy do better and get longer, symptom improvement if you do that foundational work. So that's really the natural evolution of how we got to where we are today, which is, I'd say we're 50-50. We do longevity medicine, if that's a, if that's a
call
thing.
That, I know it's anti-age, whatever. I would actually call that more proactive. Proactive medicine, where patients actually understanding that they are in control of their health, and we're providing them the tools that they wouldn't be getting in the traditional setting.
Exactly. And so does that answer your question? That's really what we do day to day is, we do injection therapies, and we've published on that, and we still collect data, and we are doing a lot of preventative anti-aging health optimization medicine.
What does your health optimization program look like?
So it differs. We have a couple of different options for people. I think, we have a very sort of accessible program that, people come in, have, 2 touch points a year. The cost point is, we want it to be accessible to people.
Mm-hmm.
So the cost point is, what I think is as affordable as you can do it, to give people guidance. You do biomarkers, you give targeted recommendations based on those, and they're sort of on their own to execute.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a very high end, full diagnostic, everything from full body MRI to complete diagnostics, both traditional and non-traditional diagnostics, with a very involved, high touch, sort of executive team for your health kind of program,
Mm-hmm.
which, very few people do, but it's fantastic when they do, because you get all your answers right away. You have a very clear roadmap, and you can really head off a lot of problems, before people even know that they're an issue. And so, I guess, does that answer your question? We have
It
kind of
does, and it kind of makes me wonder, have you tracked the result differential between the people that are like, I'm going to do it on my own, I'm going to save money and do it on my own, versus the person who is willing to invest in their health and do all the things that they need to do?
Yeah. So the answer is yes. We don't have sort of the numbers that we would like to have to sort of go to publication with that.
Mm-hmm.
And that program is really a more recent addition to what we do. And so we do track, and that's really just based on the biomarkers that we're doing for people on a regular basis. And, including biologic age, among all the other standard,
Right.
Tests that I'm sure you're familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And so the short answer is yes, we are tracking, and the goal is to really ultimately show with hard data, not only what biologic age does, but what do these biomarkers that traditional providers are more sort of familiar with as indicators of metabolic disease, and how you can completely turn around, frank disease states, which are considered chronic and non-curable, like diabetes and hypercholesterolemia, and, metabolic syndromes that aren't quite that advanced, and completely eradicate those from, the patient's biomarkers. So the short answer is yes, we do track. We do have a plan to make how we track that and what we do with that a little more sophisticated, but that takes a level of funding that we haven't had up until now. And so hopefully that will start moving forward here shortly.
So what are you seeing, just in your observational opinion, in the difference between the two kind of different program approaches from a observational
Yeah.
results perspective?
And I guess what I'd say is that people who are willing to go all in on their health get better outcomes. Changing lifestyle is not easy. It takes an effort. For most people, it usually takes a wake-up call, meaning they might have some sort of event that's medical in nature that scares them, or a family member has an event that scares them. And I think it's important to note here that, lifestyle change doesn't have to be terribly difficult. You can make baby steps and get to where you want to be. And how well you feel, like, so the way we kind of, the natural evolution of our programs is you make a couple little changes, and people might, they're usually interested, but maybe a little skeptical. And 3 months, 6 months later, they're at a point where they're like, man, I feel so much better. Like, what's next? Now what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
And you're smiling, you've probably seen this, that you're walking a path with people. And the more invested and the more interested people are at making those changes, the better results they get.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's I wish everybody could go all in and get the full workup and a very clear roadmap and could have access to all the therapies. Unfortunately, that's not the financial reality of where our health system is yet, though I believe it could be. I don't, we spend so much money on healthcare. I believe we'd spend less on healthcare if we did it this way.
Absolutely.
And so the goal, ultimately is you get enough data and you show the insurers, you show the payers the kind of cost savings that's potentially available. That's sort of the ultimate vision is, how do you change medicine in this country for the better? And so, that's kind of, I guess, does that answer your question?
It does. I knew the answer, quite frankly, but I'm glad you explained it.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to ask?
Yeah, I think is that Dr. Weil? I think he's down in Arizona. He actually did. They did a preliminary program down there that unfortunately wasn't successful at demonstrating the potential benefits of kind of this integrative approach and optimization approach. I think one of the challenges also that we face is that we're in a society that it wants to wait until there's a certain amount of proof that it works, and unfortunately, we as the observers need to impose that upon the results. I mean, if as soon as we say this is working, like yourself, myself, a number of other doctors out there, and we're getting those results, then that observer effect will actually transpose the outcomes and actually make it happen. So I think, and that's the clinical trials process, but the clinical trials process is, as you know, flawed, and what we achieve will not actually be not be evidenced over maybe even our lifetimes. And so that's the real frustration that I have.
Yeah, no, it's hard, but I think maybe what's different, Colorado is very forward thinking in a variety of different ways, and what I see is the people here they really want this kind of medicine, and they'll go to a traditional concierge primary care practice, for example, thinking that this is what they're going to get. And then they go, and a year or two later, they say, but wait a second, I'm getting the same old stuff,
same thing
in a nicer package,
right?
But it's the same old stuff. And so, I feel like at least where we are, the patients are really driving this change because they know that there are things out there. They hear about them on podcasts like yours and elsewhere. They know that there are options, and they want them. And so I agree with you, though, that I think moving the needle on the traditional system is going to be difficult. And in my sort of imagination of what this could look like is I think it will be something separate. I think the traditional system is going to do what it's going to do, and
it's a necessary component
now. Right? Sorry, what was that?
Pardon the intrusion, but it's a necessary component of the system.
Yeah,
reactive medicine is absolutely necessary, but it shouldn't be the dominant component.
I agree 100%. And in fact, it should be flip-flopped. I think, ideally, where we are now, where our practices exist is sort of a niche, small area. Right. And, not that reactive medicine should be this small, but it should be a smaller component than the preventative, functional, regenerative component. And so, I agree 100% with you.
I think we're trending that way. I think more physicians are slowly becoming aware, like you and Tripp have, that the way that they were trained isn't serving. And simultaneously, I think maybe it's the younger generations that are more attuned to the nutritional component and the physical fitness component and being more mindful of, what they're doing and how they're treating themselves. So, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I like to entertain the idea that we're on this very slow, organic flipping of the system.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you there.
So, one thing that I did definitely wanted to ask about, because you're in Colorado, liberal Colorado, with your psychedelic approaches. Are
Yeah.
those things that you're doing in your practice? How long have you been doing it? What are you doing, and what kind of results are you seeing?
Yeah. So, when we started our clinic almost a decade ago now, I have a good friend who I trained with, who's board certified emergency medicine like me. He was medical director at one of the VA facilities near here. He had deployed multiple times. So even though he started residency before me, he finished after because he, had multiple deployments with his National Guard group. I'm not sure the proper terminology. And he ended up opening a string of ketamine clinics, and he's based in Texas and he has some in Colorado now. And when we started, I was talking with him just because I was interested in he had already opened his ketamine clinic. And he said, Voss, man, you've got, if you're opening a clinic, you have to do ketamine therapy. He's like, I'm changing lives every day in my ketamine clinic in a way that you can't imagine. And so I pulled the data and I looked at it and I said, I don't know why we wouldn't do it. So we've been doing ketamine therapy, and we started with sort of the traditional modalities like treatment-resistant depression, anxiety, and PTSD. So we've been doing, ketamine therapy for years. Psilocybin has recently been decriminalized here in the state. There are rules around the professional use, which are licensing. So Colorado, not our medical board, but DORA, which is the Department of Regulatory Agencies here in Colorado, that is the agency under which the medical board sits, is coming up with a set of rules around how the therapeutic use of psilocybin is going to unfold and be performed here in the state. So we're not able to use psilocybin, through the clinic or in the clinic yet. But it's been decriminalized for personal use. So, if I have a client who has grown it or has access to it, I am able to advise them on how to use it, particularly where, we see that the most. And what I do the most is guiding people through microdosing process, and how to use psilocybin microdosing for cognitive optimization and mental health optimization. But the most of the depth of my experience comes from ketamine therapy, which works through different mechanism, but is similar. It's a psychedelic therapy. And
Is it
so we have a lot of
intravenous?
experience.
It's IV.
What's that?
Is that IV
It
therapy?
can be done. Yeah, it can be done many different ways. So we tend to prefer to do IV therapy with ketamine, but it can be done IM. It could be done orally. It could be done as a microdose intranasally. We as a practice prefer to stay away from microdosing ketamine or intranasal ketamine because of addiction and abuse potential. And so we tend to basically do directly observed therapy, which is where we give infusions in the clinic. We prefer infusions because when you can titrate an infusion. You can, particularly, so like somebody comes in, they have sleep apnea, and you're not sure how their oxygenation and their cardiovascular status is going to do under a very deep, ketamine dose. You slow the drip down and lighten how sedated they are. Within minutes, you can rapidly titrate a drip. You can also then titrate to the depth of their psychotropic experience. Whereas IM therapy, like it's the ship has sailed. And so if there are any issues, you have to deal with them, waiting for the body to metabolize the ketamine. So in general, we tend to prefer IV dosing, but there are many different ways to do it.
So who's the ideal patient for that?
Yeah. So the short answer is almost anybody, depending on their medical history and what kind of contraindications they might have. But what we've found is that psychedelics, particularly ketamine and psilocybin, are potent stimulators of BDNF production, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. This is a protein that I'm sure you're familiar with, and your listeners might be because they're educated and progressive. But this is the protein that your brain needs to grow new synaptic connections, which is really the protein your brain, your central nervous system needs for neuronal plasticity and for good cognitive function. You need good BDNF levels, and BDNF production, like testosterone levels, we get less efficient at producing as we get older. We also get less efficient at producing BDNF. And so, what we found is that psychedelics are potent stimulators of BDNF production. And when you think about it that way, that it's something that enhances neuronal plasticity, and it can be used in any scenario where you're trying to enhance neuronal function. And
so it would be good for dementia, people with dementia or Alzheimer's.
What I would say is, if you have advanced dementia, that's an uphill battle. But if you start early in somebody who might start noticing, they're like, cognitive, like, I've got some issues with, I'm just not firing on all cylinders as well. And what I would say is that it can be used alone as a monotherapy, but, particularly when you combine it with other therapies. So for example, IV stem cells with peptides like Cmax or CLANC, which are also known to enhance BDNF production, along with psychedelics, could be used in almost anybody who doesn't have contraindications for any of those individual modalities, just purely for cognitive enhancement. And, and then hormones as well. So of course, like hormone therapy, the reason why many people, I'm sure in your experience too, stay with it is it's not for physical benefits. It's the cognitive benefits that keep people on a lot of hormone therapy, not all the time, but a lot of the time. And so particularly when you combine all these therapies, I think psychedelics provide a really interesting avenue for neuronal healing and cognitive enhancement. So you can start, just really briefly, you can start with sort of what is generally accepted, which is like, okay, treatment refractory PTSD, anxiety, depression. You can start with ketamine therapy there, because now, when we started, we were a little worried about the medical legal, aspects of that. But now I think we're on a different page in that, ketamine therapy is sort of widely seen. I don't know where, if there are ketamine clinics, where you are, but it's definitely in the public consciousness way more than it was a decade ago. And psilocybin, which works through a different receptor pathway, just gives you a whole nother option, because when you look at the literature for ketamine and say depression, it works in about 60 to 70% of the people. And so there's 30 to 40% of the people who don't get good results with ketamine. And theoretically, through a different receptor pathway, maybe you could get results for those people with psilocybin. So I guess I'll pause there. You were going to ask something.
Well, so somebody on that therapy, is it one and done, or is there like they're going to have to continue doing it, or once they reach a certain result, like how does that work?
Yeah. So if they're responders, what I would say is it's usually not one and done. with ketamine therapy, it's usually a series of infusions or treatments, meaning somewhere between 3 and 6 for most people. And then there are some people who do that and they're done. You can wean them off their SSRI, whatever anxiety medication they're on. And, there are some who I haven't heard from in years. And sometimes I'll just call them up, be like, hey, how you doing? And a lot of them are like, Doc, I haven't been back in because I'm good. And so there are some people, and again, it's because, traditional medicine is stuck on treating depression with this neurochemical. Well, if serotonin is the issue, let's boost serotonin levels with an SSRI. But with a psychedelic, what you're doing is you're enhancing neuronal plasticity. So by enhancing neuronal plasticity, at least what the literature and what my experience would suggest is that people are learning a new pattern of behavior. And so if you think about depression as in the default mode network as potentially a reflexive pattern of behavior that's developed over time and becomes sort of the default mode in that person, and you enhance BDNF production, you can teach the brain how to live in a different mood state and stay there by enhancing their plasticity. So, if you shift your paradigm of how you think about mental illness, and again, it doesn't work for everybody, but for those people that it works for, it's a short-term treatment. There are some people who might come back on a periodic basis when they need sort of a top up. You might see them every couple of years or every year for a few years, but most people who respond to ketamine therapy need it for a short period of time and then are medication free from then on.
Wow.
Interesting.
So it's incredibly powerful for that 60 to 70% that it works for. And I would argue that instead of an SSRI or, people are so quick to write a prescription for, Prozac or Lexapro or some of the, they're considered safe. You could, I think you should do a trial of 3 to 6 ketamine sessions on somebody, because you could prevent the need for them ever to be on a chronic medication with that.
Nice.
So, and the literature would suggest at least 60% of the people. So it's a pretty powerful therapy.
Yeah. I was just speaking with a neuropsych from Brigham and Women's this past weekend, and we were talking about the psilocybin. He was saying psilocybin is like 5 years of treatment in one sitting. And so just amazing results they're seeing. Yeah.
Incredible. And then, I would even say it's not FDA approved yet, but MDMA is coming. I don't know if, you saw the phase 3 trial. They published it a couple of months ago. Yeah. So they did, and this is MAPS. So there's an organization that's been working on an FDA pathway for approval of MDMA in PTSD, and their phase 3 trial is it's beyond a smashing success. So MDMA also enhances BDNF production and is a whole nother, also works through a different receptor pathway. And I guess what I would say is that, I think one of the criticisms I would have, I was a proponent of the new, law that was passed here in Colorado when it was on the ballot. And I testified in front of this Senate subcommittee when, after the bill was passed on why I thought that they should and how they should support and enact that bill into law in Colorado law. And one of the criticisms I have for the community is that people who are familiar, the traditional users of psilocybin, who have been really, underground and operating illegally, but doing so because they believed in the power of the medicine. A lot of them say, this is safe, it's non-addictive, but most of them are not medically trained. Most of them have some level of, many of them, there are certification programs that they can go through, like at Naropa, and there's a university in California where people can get trained in guiding psilocybin journeys. And so they have some level of therapy, of training for how to do the therapy with somebody, but they're working with a self-selected population that's willing to go underground. These people tend to be very healthy. They tend to be intelligent and, forward thinking. And when, as you know, anytime a drug gets approved and you roll it out to the population, you're going to find subsets of the community that, might not react so well. They might have problems, whether that's metabolically with liver, kidney disease. They might have psychiatric complications from these medications. So I think the word of caution I would say is that, yes, historically, when you look at the King's College data and the Hopkins data on psilocybin, it looks very safe. And these are all pre-screened, very healthy people, just like every drug trial. And so people who are interested in these therapies, I would encourage them to talk to somebody who has some experience, who can talk to them about the risks and benefits the same way you would with any therapy. And so that would be my one caveat, that if they're used appropriately, they can be very safe. And, I've seen people who are addicted to drinking water. So, hyponatremia in the hospital, and they, for whatever reason, they just can't stop drinking water. And, if somebody can be addicted to water, you can be addicted to almost anything. And so, right. And I'm not trying to be, I don't want to fearmonger, but I would just say that, like, they're incredibly powerful medications that have the potential for enormous therapeutic benefit. But just like anything, it has to be used appropriately, and proper guidance is an important part of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yep.
You could almost say that they needed to do the intake paperwork, go through the physical, get the labs done, like do it right.
Yeah, exactly. And listen, if you're 20-year-old and healthy, you might not need to do all that. Mm-hmm. But what I would say is you will get, if you're going to it with a specific purpose. So, for example, I'm depressed and I'm not responding to all the traditional therapies. You will get a better result if you're guided properly through that process.
Yeah.
And if you're prepared properly, because I don't know, I never did drugs, but I was an athlete, med school, I was straight and narrow, and I think I smoked marijuana once in the Peace Corps, like that was it. But recently I've come around to these medications. I microdose psilocybin periodically. It's rare, but I do it. And it's incredibly powerful. And you don't want to, jumping in the deep end of a pool might not be the right thing if you're not sure you know how to swim. So deep. I would just say, word of caution: wade in, don't jump, and get the proper instruction as to what and how to do it.
Excellent advice.
Cool. Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, or no?
No, I totally agree.
Well, is there anything else that you would like our listeners to know? Words of wisdom?
No, I think if they're listening to this kind of podcast, they're on the right track, and I appreciate what you're doing, and I appreciate you having me on, and I'm just very grateful, and I really hope you and everybody else, has outstanding success with these therapies, because I believe in them, and I've seen the power personally, as I know you have. And so I think you're doing an awesome job. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. Before we go, can you tell the listeners where they can learn more about you?
Oh, yeah, of course. So, our practice here in Boulder is Rocky Mountain Regenerative Medicine, and our website is rmrm.com for Rocky Mountain Regenerative Medicine. So rmrm.com. And for our high-end concierge product, that's a different, even though it's what we do fundamentally here in the clinic, it is a different sort of organization. That's longevityhealth.clinic. And so those are the two places where, people can learn more about what we do.
Cool. Well, and I'll
Awesome.
definitely have those available on the links and everything. And thank you again for sharing your wisdom. It was very educational for me because,
Very interesting.
I learned something today.
Great. Well,
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, listener. Hope you found this just in time. Hope you found this entertaining, educational, and inspirational. And until next time.
Thanks for subscribing to Your Infinite Health. I'm Dr. Tripp.
And I'm Lenae. Until next time, feel it, look it, and live it.